This video is going to be more of kind of like a demo rather than a hands-on tutorial. I just want to give you some ideas to play with here. Another one of those common design trends that you see a lot are glowing flourishes, filigree, and vines, and all that kind of stuff. So this is kind of like the end product of what we're going to make here. This is something I actually did out of After Effects, and so I used After Effects to make these vines kind of glow a little bit more and add this cool gradient background. But nevertheless, this idea of growing vines is something you can do in Premiere. The reason this is going to be more of like a demo than a hands-on tutorial is because it's not something that Premiere can handle quite well. So I have here this PSD file, and it's layered with all these different components. And that's one of the most important aspects of this, is that in the setup work, before you bring in your vines or whatever you're going to be animating to grow on, you need to have a separate layered file where each one of those components is on a separate layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the visibility off of all of the vines except for this main vine. I'm going to resize my window here, and I'm going to apply the write-on effect. That's W-R-I-T-E, not R-I-G-H-T. Write as in write with a pen. Apply the write-on effect to this main vine. And now the write-on effect actually is a very cool one. It allows you to create animated signatures, and as we'll see, these animated painted on vines, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to click the word write-on so we get our effect control point. This is going to be critical. This little point here is essential to being able to use this effect well. So I'm going to put this down at the base of the vine, and just so we can see stuff, I'm going to increase the size of the brush size value. About 21 should do it. We want to make sure that that fits over the thickest part of our vine, and it does. That works, so we'll leave it there. Now, at first, it might not be obvious what we're doing here, but that's okay. Just stick with me, and then the purposes for doing what we're doing will make more sense. I'm going to click the stopwatch for brush position, because that's what we're going to be animating here, the movement of this little icon here, which is the brush. I'm also going to zoom this in to about 400%, making it easier to see our little brush control icon. You could use these scroll bars on the sides and the bottom as necessary. And then we're going to move in time, making sure that we've already clicked the stopwatch here, and we'll just grab the effect control point and move that upwards. Okay, now here we see one of the great problems with why this is a demo and not a hands-on tutorial. Premiere just really doesn't handle that very well. Now what should happen is that there should be a line connecting the first keyframe and the next keyframe, but there isn't one. If we were to play this back and actually render this, we would see it, but it's not there now. And it makes this very challenging to work because you can't really get a true assessment of what you've done. So we'll just keep going along here, and I'm going to give you the pointers for what this should look like, and hopefully it will make sense and you'll be able to recreate this on your own. See, this is what it's supposed to look like, is that the white is supposed to kind of cover up the vine. And so we then move in time some more and move this point a little bit more. Not those handles like that. That's not what you want to move. You want to move the circle itself. There we go. And it takes a long time to update visually. And sometimes even when it does update visually, it doesn't quite do it all the way. But nevertheless, we keep trotting on and we move this point. And the point is you want to keep moving in time and changing the brush position until eventually the entire vine is covered. I'm going to change the zoom back to fit so we can see the entire vine here. Now, eventually what you're trying to do is to paint the whole vine and then go back to paint style at the bottom. And instead of painting on the original image, which is what we're doing here, we have white paint, as you can see by the color here, and we're just painting white over the vine. That's not all that great. So what we want to do, instead of painting on the original image, we want to reveal the original image with our paint. So nobody will ever see our paint. It will just use that paint to reveal the vine. And that's what we are getting at. There we go. That's what we're looking at here. So we want to have it reveal the original image so our paint actually uncovers what's already there. And so what you do is you animate that vine being written on, and then you animate all of these little smaller side vines that we have as well. Let's turn off the visibility of that layer so we can see everything else here. So we have all these other vines, and you animate them animating on as well, and you put them all together, and it creates this big, beautiful vine that looks amazing. And one of the things I did in the final version here was that I did kind of like the equivalent of a nested sequence. I took the entire vine with all of its branches and I nested them in one big sequence and copied them and rotated them so it looked like there was a bunch of them. And that's kind of like the trick with these growing vines, make them look beautiful, is that you have one beautiful vine and then you just kind of duplicate it and tweak it a little bit, maybe flip it, and maybe you make a few bigger and smaller. And so then when you put it all together, you take all this spinny stuff and it looks like super ornate and beautiful, when really you just animated one vine and duplicated it several times. So again, it can get frustrating. You might need to do some temporary rendering here to get things to show up and work properly. And it's a little frustrating, much easier to do in, say, After Effects. But nevertheless, it can be done here in Premiere, and it's a very popular effect.